Fallout 4 is a game that inspires players to engage with this content in a multitude of ways. For some, it allows for an epic power fantasy. For others, it's about becoming ingrained in a fictional yet somehow believable world. And still others yet take it as a pure challenge of patience and difficulty. Recently, Bethesda released a beta version of its survival mode. After spending about 25 hours with it, here's what this game designer thinks. First, let's list some of the core changes that really affect the gameplay, and then we can break them down from there. Vastly increased deadliness, limited saving, no fast travel, needs management, and increased weight limitations. I included vastly because this isn't an exaggeration. Everything kills everything really, really fast. However, the important distinction here isn't that it's the typical Bethesda difficulty slider just simply cranked to very high. Even legendary enemies can be taken down fairly quickly, especially if you come properly equipped or get the drop on them. The caveat, of course, is that you can be killed just as quickly, which becomes a huge concern because of how the saving is handled, but more on that later. I really like this decision and its effects on the way you play. It might be personal preference, but I've always felt that the Fallout universe promoted an air of caution within me. This wasteland is teeming with predators, both human and otherwise. It's dangerous, not a place to just waltz around without fear. But that's not to say you can't hold your own. I felt very much a force of nature being able to drop super mutants and raiders alike with single silence, well-placed headshots. At the same time, any old bum with a grenade could spell the end of me. Because of this, I became very wary of willfully entering into engagements in which I was not 100% sure I could end quickly, efficiently, and most importantly, safely. As a side note, I will say that this decision somewhat undercuts the current perk system and level up paths. Stealth and damage increasing related perks easily outpaces various other perks that are more useful in the base game, say, but much less desirable in survival mode. In a full release of this mode, I would like to see Bethesda tweak or even replace certain perks to better balance this and allow for a wider variety of player progression paths. You can now only save the game by sleeping in a bed. It's a pretty drastic measure, and something that a lot of people were complaining about when this mode was first announced. Honestly, I thought going in that it was going to be a big point of contention for me, but I actually ended up really enjoying it with a few caveats. First of all, not being able to save on a whim plays right back into that fear I mentioned earlier. The world truly feels dangerous because there are meaningful repercussions for death. In particular, the dense city center is terrifying to navigate. Any random landmine could potentially delete 30 minutes of tangible progress. And you know what? It does suck when that happens. I cursed profusely on seemingly countless occasions and simply had to put the game down and come back later. But the flip side is what makes it all worth it. Because all things are relative. When I finally made that progress, it felt very real. It wasn't just an accomplishment for me, but for my character. So now to the caveats. This new save system is not nearly perfect. For one, if you're unfortunate enough to have the game crash or if you encounter a bug that impedes your forward progress, it is really frustrating. Death should feel meaningful, but it should feel like you messed up, not simply something that happened to you unfairly. And I don't have an elegant solution for that problem because it kind of comes with the nature of a limited save system and a generally buggy game. But there are some things that they can do to much improve this system. 1. You need to be able to sleep in owned beds, or just eliminate owned beds entirely. It's a huge letdown when you see a bed in the distance and you get this rush of, holy shit, a bed I haven't saved in 40 minutes, this is amazing, I can't believe I found this, fuck, it's owned. If you're gonna make beds the holy grail, then you really need to lean into that. 2. All beds need to provide you with sleep. I haven't actually gotten to the needs portion, but in this mode there are different bed types. All of them save the game, but only some provide the benefit of sleep. I don't understand this decision at all, and since actual beds, not mattresses or sleeping bags, are actually pretty rare, It makes managing your sleep needs confusing and annoying. For instance, many times I ran into the scenario where I was not tired but wanted to save, slept in a mattress, not a bed, and woke up overtired from lack of sleep. This is obviously upsetting from a narrative standpoint, but also a gameplay one, as you lose max AP when you're tired. It's a small issue, but it's easily remedied. 3. There should be a rare, valuable, consumable item that saves on use. This would give players some level of agency on saving in which they deem the most important situations. And when I say rare, I mean fusion core rare. Obtaining these would be very high priority and a tremendous luxury to have on hand. This could be easily balanced by having the item have a significant weight or other value within the world. For example, let's just say you could consume a fusion core to save. There aren't that many of them out there, and they're extremely useful in their own right. This would create meaningful decisions for players on how to best use the resources they have, which is really what this mode is all about. I've touched on needs management briefly, but it's significant enough to garner its own section. Survival mode tracks your hunger, thirst, and sleep deprivation. If any of these drop below healthy levels, you start receiving a penalty to your max available action points, and your special attributes take a hit as well. Additionally, you can get diseases, which stricken you with various negative status effects like requiring more sleep or having action points regenerate slowly. Actually, did I say you can get diseases? I meant you will get diseases, because this occurs a little bit too often for how difficult they are to remedy. You have to visit a doctor, which is tough with no fast travel, or take antibiotics, which are rare and super expensive. Even after I finally got myself healed, it was a matter of minutes before I contracted another disease. Also, they stack. So I think this just needs to be tuned slightly. In that same vein, you need to drink too much water. You can barely walk to the location you're going before dropping below the acceptable level of thirst. I love the idea of having needs. I love it. But they have to be reasonable. This is just a matter of tweaking though. Needs also have a very cool dynamic with healing items and stimulants. Taking a stim pack to heal, or drug like Med-X, which decreases incoming damage, will pretty much instantly dehydrate you. You get a benefit, but it comes at a cost. If you get too dehydrated, it will severely deplete your available action points, making extended fighting extremely difficult. At the same time, hey, if you need to use a stim pack or Med-X or buff out to stay alive, then that's just something you're gonna have to do. I also love the changes they made to Nuka-Cola. When you drink one of these, it basically suppresses most of your needs temporarily. Caffeine is a hell of a drug, meaning that in a pinch you can continue fighting. But when it wears off, the crash hits you hard. It's a really good design decision, and as a gameplay, it really reflects life and doubles down on that instant gratification of knowing that soon you're gonna have to deal with these repercussions. Again though, I have a few suggestions for their needs system. 1. There should be a variety in the quality of food. If there is, it's not noticeable enough. I ended up just carrying around 20 mute fruit with me at all times. This was more than enough to fill my food requirement, and they didn't weigh that much. I think there is an opportunity for food to have wildly different properties and effects upon eating them. I'm not sure if I would go as deep as to force the player to maintain a decent diet. That might be too extensive of a dive. But I do want food that I cook or upgrade at a cooking station to be much more valuable than the raw ingredients. We could even have certain food like meat become spoiled if not kept in a refrigerator. That way we can give these cooked, perishable foods awesome positive time benefits as a reward. Increased at max health, increased max AP, less likely to become diseased, stuff like that. 2. In general, there should be more positives for being healthy. As it stands, you basically only get penalized with this needs system. I think it would be a better idea to actually reward players for staying in the healthy state. When you decay from there, then you enter the neutral state. And then from there, you begin to be penalized. Of course, everything in balance, you wouldn't stay in the perfectly healthy state for that long, but it would be a nice incentive to head back to a settlement and properly prepare for a big trip or fight. Not being able to fast travel is really what makes survival mode tick. It forces you to engage with the world and all the dangers that come with that. When taken into conjunction with everything else this mode throws at you, no fast traveling creates a newfound appreciation and need to create settlements. This is actually a bigger deal than it seems because the addition of settlement building was one of the most polarizing features of Fallout 4. Many players loved engaging with them because it allowed for a pretty extensive creation experience. However, for people who didn't really come to Fallout for that, the entire feature feels out of place and unnecessary. And the reason for that is that it just doesn't provide a very large gameplay benefit relative to the amount of time you spend with it. But in survival mode, this all changes. Creating settlements gives you a reliable save point and base of operations. Even a modest shack with 4 walls, a roof, and some place to put that heavy ass gear is a welcome respite from the kill or be killed wasteland. Not to mention, these are places you can restock on ammo, water, and food. When I first started, I could barely roam past the Red Rocket truck stop or Sanctuary Hills, 2 very early locations, before I was overwhelmed with disease, thirst, hunger, radiation, and lack of ammunition. By slowly dotting new settlements across the map, however, it gave me safe routes to use in order to get to locations that are far away. Because the truth of the matter is that I don't think you'd be able to do the trek from one side of the map from the other in one go without stopping to manage your needs. And that's good, it feeds into the culture of what this mode is attempting to accomplish. I would like to provide one alternative though. Allow players to build travel stations at settlements. Now, I don't want this to circumvent not fast traveling because I really like the dynamic that creates, as I stated before. But similarly to saving with a consumable item, this would provide players with a limited way of more effectively navigating when they deem it perfectly necessary. Because establishing these wouldn't be simple or easy. It could be balanced such that the initial build process requires ample amounts of material, and you would only be able to fast travel to settlements where these stations have been built. Additionally, each use of the station could require materials, like oil. Again, this creates a deeper incentive for players to engage with settlement building. It doesn't replace not being able to fast travel, but it does empower them in a way that feels rewarding. It's a natural progression, because by my 20th hour, the same trek from Sanctuary Hills to the edge of Diamond City was no longer that terrifying journey it was when I was level 1 or 2. I had done the route so many times that it just became tedious. It's that level of mastery of systems that this type of thing would promote. The final layer here is a drastically reduced weight capacity. Not only are you and your companion's encumbrance lowered, but ammo has weight. This is more significant than I first realized, especially if you want to carry any type of heavy weaponry around. I think missiles weigh around 8 pounds each. This really forced me to make active decisions about what guns I was going to bring along on a particular mission. I ended up only being able to carry 2 guns around with me on a regular basis, and toe the line for how much ammo to bring along as well. If I brought too much, I'd be wasting valuable inventory space. But rather that than be caught dead with no ammunition, right? And because I only had the capacity to carry 2 weapons, I became strangely attached to my 2 guns, which I fondly named Goodnight and the Pipe, as I slowly upgraded them along the way. Survival mode is a great idea and an excellent step in the right direction that allows for a completely new play experience. That being said, it's clearly a little rough around the edges and could use a significant amount of tuning for optimal play experience. I'm really glad that Bethesda decided to do a beta so they can learn and hopefully address some of the problem areas and explore opportunities like the ones I've discussed in this video. It would be great if players who wanted to play survival mode didn't need to supplement it with a bunch of user created mods to get it to live up to this potential, because I think there's a lot of it here. Anyways, thanks for listening, guys. I had a great time dissecting this, and let me know what you think in the comments, and let's just start a discussion. Alright, see you later.